This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Pursuing Greenland. Good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast.
Greenland is very important.
President Trump will make the case for annexing Greenland when he travels to Switzerland today for meetings with our European allies.
Well, I don't think they're going to push back too much. Look, we have to have it. They can protect it. Denmark, they're wonderful people, but they don't even go there. And, because the boat went there 500 years ago and then left, that doesn't give you title to property.
Former National Security Advisor Victoria Coates.
Our needs for Greenland are different than they were 75 years ago. And we don't want to lease. We want actually to have an ownership stake in Greenland. I don't think we're looking at statehood, but we are looking at an ownership stake.
When asked if he intends to seize Greenland by force, President Trump responded last night, no comment. Today marks the official start of the second year of the president's second term. It was January 20th, 2025, when he took the oath of office for a second time. Conservative podcaster Elizabeth Pipko says, like him or not, President Trump has gotten a lot done in the past 12 months.
It's not just that he's the most consequential president of our lifetimes. It's the fact that even Democrats will admit he has done more than any president before him, and he's done more of what he promised, which we never see when it comes to elected officials.
A recent CBS News poll shows a majority of voters do not believe that the president has done enough to lower the high cost of living. Blinding whiteouts caused a more than 100 vehicle pileup yesterday on an interstate in Grand Rapids, Michigan. What a mess. 30 tractor trailers were involved in the accident.
It was absolute chaos. I mean, everyone was everywhere. People out of their cars, people rushing around, trying to get the ambulances through.
Millions of Americans feeling the bite of this unrelenting Arctic blast. Correspondent Aaron McLaughlin.
The polar plunge punching through the heart of the country from Minnesota to Maine. Frigid temps stretching all the way down to Florida, and more than 40 million under cold weather alerts.
They're measuring snow today in feet, not inches, in parts of upstate New York. Meteorologist Sarah Sterling with WIVB in Buffalo.
The wind is just blowing all of that snow across the roadways, so it is making travel very difficult. Stay home if you can.
Winter storm warnings continue through tomorrow afternoon in ski country. The lake effect has also led to travel advisories in a number of communities. Buffalo schools and all after-school activities there canceled for the day. It is just too cold to be outside. The Trump administration is vowing to file federal charges now against those protesters who stormed a church in St. Paul, Minnesota during an anti-ICE protest on Sunday. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
What you saw there was anti-Christian, anti-law enforcement rioters storming a church. You are not allowed to stop people from worshiping, and you're not allowed to intimidate or impede them.
The protesters were egged on by former CNN anchorman Don Lemon. Now those protesters, including Don Lemon, face charges for violating the Federal FACE Act.
Don Lemon is obstructing intentionally the ability of this pastor to carry out his religious service. That is a violation of the FACE Act. It is a crime, what he is doing. And Don Lemon should go to jail.
That's Washington Times columnist Mark Thiessen. Tensions are rising with Iran. Correspondent Greg Palcott.
The Iranian leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei declaring President Trump is responsible for the upheaval. Trump firing back, saying Iran needs new leadership. The Iranian president posting that an attack on the supreme leader is tantamount to war.
Massive protests the past few weeks have left thousands of pro-democracy demonstrators dead on the streets of Tehran. House Speaker Mike Johnson addressed the British Parliament today. He's the first House Speaker to ever do that. It was to mark America's 250th anniversary.
Now, I know this is not a long span of time in the scale of human history. I get that. We were touring the 1,000-year-old Windsor Palace a day or so ago. At the dinner we had here last night, it was not lost on me that there at my table were items of silver silverware older than my country. Puts it in perspective.
Puts it in perspective, indeed. Johnson says the U.S. and Britain have stood together as pillars of peace and security across generations. Indiana capped off a perfect season last night, winning its first ever college football championship.
A century of futility is forgotten. The Indiana Hoosiers are the kings of college football.
The Hoosiers down the Hurricanes of Miami with this late game interception.
Back, steps up, delivers downfield, intercepted! Jamari Sharp makes the pick that will clinch Indiana's first national championship.
Final score 27-21. What a game. The Hoosiers becoming the first team to finish the season 16-0 since Yale did it back in 1894. That's going back a few years. Still to come on the Noon Report, a Tuesday edition, Hochul budget address, Christian response to ICE raids, and code blue alerts in effect.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams, calling for some more wintry weather in the days ahead. We'll break it down in the forecast coming up. We'll see you in 10 minutes.
All right, see you then. Thank you, Kevin. In the meantime, let's check the stories making news where you live, all across New York and Pennsylvania. Whiteout conditions creating difficult travel in the lake belts of western and central New York today. Those areas are under winter storm warning through tomorrow afternoon. Brianna Foose with Spectrum News files this report from the winter wonderland that is Hamburg, New York, just outside of Buffalo.
It's crazy as you're driving down the road. There's no snow, absolutely no snow. And then all of a sudden you hit this like wall of snow. It trickles a little bit and then boom, you're in it near whiteout conditions.
No school in Buffalo today. All after school activities were canceled as well due to those dangerous wind chills off the Great Lakes. A number of counties across New York and Pennsylvania have issued code blue alerts today to help the homeless find shelter in the bitter cold. Beth Kemp is executive director of Community Cares in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania. Her group converted a church in Carlisle into a homeless shelter last night.
Statistically, over 1,000 people a year succumb to the elements throughout America. That doesn't sound like a lot of people, but it's a significant number for the nation in which we live in. And so this is why this kind of service is so vital.
Experts caution in conditions like today, frostbite can set in on exposed skin in as little as 10 minutes. They recommend you wear layers of clothing and make sure to cover your head, ears, hands, and feet with a hat, gloves, and some warm socks. Very important. Also, in order to keep your pipes from freezing in your home, let the water drip from your faucet. Keep cabinet doors open as well to allow more heat to get to those uninsulated pipes in bathrooms and kitchens. This week's frigid forecast has prompted safety reminders for not just people, but for pets too. Family Life's Mark Webster has this report.
Yeah, for example, in Pennsylvania, there's been an anti-animal cruelty law on the books since 2017. Known as Libre's Law, it restricts leaving an animal outside for more than 30 minutes when the temperature is 32 degrees or colder. At 0 degrees, animals shouldn't be outside for more than 15 minutes at most. Violators of Libre's Law could face felony charges, fines of up to $15,000, and up to 7 years in prison. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
All right, thank you, Mark. New York Governor Kathy Hochul will take the wraps off her $260 billion budget proposal today. The 1 p.m. speech will hone in on universal child care. Hochul wants every pre-K student to have access to child care by the year 2028. Dr. Ralph Kerr at the Teaching and Learning Institute in Houghton, New York, is not a fan of the Hochul plan.
The state really wants to take over child care for you. And I'm old-fashioned enough to say that I think parents should be responsible for child care. And I know that parents are under pressure, two-job families and all that stuff. And one could say, well, it's a good thing that the state wants to take my kids because that helps me be able to do what I want to do. I would just call on parents to think about that. It's a dilemma, I understand, because there's financial pressure on families. But at the same point, God gave us children children for a purpose, and part of that purpose is for us to raise them in the image of God. And as much as I support public schools, I don't think we should rely on the public schools to raise our children.
That's Dr. Ralph Kerr at the Teaching and Learning Institute. You hear him every Monday on Issues in Education on Family Life. Again, Governor Hochul's budget address set for 1 p.m. today in Albany. Well, many Christians are struggling with the proper response to the anti-ICE protests that are raging in Minneapolis right now. Michael Geer with the Pennsylvania Family Institute says the Bible does provide some clarity when it comes to this thorny issue.
I think about a passage in the book of Acts, chapter 17, which it says, God has established the nations and set their boundaries in time. And so the role of government is different than what individuals are to do and how they're to embrace those who are in need and to express compassion and to care for one another is something that we as Christians are called to do, but to also understand that there is a rightful role for government to undertake and that we should not be obstacles of that, but actually be participating in obeying the civil authorities.
That's Michael Geer with the Pennsylvania Family Institute. You hear him every Friday during Capital Connection on Family Life. The Baseball Hall of Fame will announce the class of 2026 tonight at 6 p.m. on the MLB Network. The new inductees will join second baseman Jeff Kent in Cooperstown this summer. Strong candidates for election by the Baseball Writers Association of America include Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones. There are 12 first-timers debuting on the ballot this year, including pitcher Cole Hamels. And again, expect that announcement at 6 o'clock this evening on the MLB Network. There's been no shortage of reaction to the Buffalo Bills' decision to fire head coach Sean McDermott after 9 seasons. Here's what some of Bills' Mafia had to say to Wham News.
I just don't know who they're going to pick up that is going to instantly have the impact I think they're looking for.
I thought he was a great coach who provided stability, accountability, professionalism. He was just a cool, level-headed guy.
I understand the business aspect, but for Bills fans, I know when you're the Mafia, it's more than business. So yeah, I feel a little sick.
Yeah, no shortage of reaction indeed. NFL insider Vic Carucci is a columnist with the Buffalo News.
It felt to me right along this was a Super Bowl or bust situation for Sean McDermott. I mean, you get so many opportunities in the postseason, and when you're not getting to the final place or the ultimate place that they need to go, that starts to weigh. Sean was carrying the weight of that all year long.
The 51-year-old McDermott issued a statement after his firing saying that he is grateful for the opportunity to have coached the Bills for as long as he did, nearly a decade. McDermott called Buffalo an incredibly special place. Still to come on the Noon Report. For Tuesday, should Greenland be our land? Big question mark there. ICE protesters storm church. And Hoosier hysteria. Indiana rules the college football world.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. A few thousand worshipers at last week's Sunday service at Sagero Church in the city of Busan, South Korea, sang loudly, "All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. I will sing of the goodness of God." It's an appropriate song for a congregation that's grown so dramatically from about 20 members a few decades ago to a 23-acre campus now buzzing with life and activity. After the service, dozens of church members prepared free lunches for everyone who wished to stay, as they do each and every week. It's a practice, an elder told me, that makes it possible for the church to also offer meals for wedding celebrations that take place at Sagero Church nearly every weekend at no charge to the marrying couples. It's an essential way that the church is addressing the crisis of the nation's declining marriage and fertility rates, which are among the lowest in the world. Though you'd not know that from the hundreds of young people who gathered at the stage to sing at the beginning of each service. And last year, the church also started a Christian school. And yet, since August, the lead pastor of Sagero Church, Pastor Som, has been in prison, accused by the government of election interference. I visited Pastor Som this past week, hoping to encourage him. Instead, he encouraged me. And I mean that in the most literal sense of the word. He gave me courage, like he has for his own 3 children who advocate on his behalf, as he has for the elders and pastors of the church, some of whom are also being targeted by the state, and also his wife, who spends most nights sleeping and praying at the church. Meanwhile, during the time he's been in prison, Pastor Son has written a book and is also sharing the gospel tirelessly with fellow inmates. Now, it may be that Pastor Son, in his zeal to speak out against the current administration's progressive socialist and pro-LGBTQ platform, violated the letter of South Korean law. At best, that would merit a fine, but instead he's been arrested, threatened with 16 charges, held in jail pending his trial, and faces significant prison time. The intent of the government here is clear. Like the state of Colorado did to Jack Phillips, the process is the punishment. It's meant to elicit fear and to silence other dissent. I asked one of the pastor's children if the government's attempts at intimidation was actually working, or if other pastors and Christians were indeed speaking out. Many had spoken out, I was told. Many others had not. They, like too many Americans, believe that Christians are best to avoid politics altogether. Years ago, Chuck Colson warned of alarming language being used by certain American political leaders. Instead of religious freedom, they would talk about freedom of worship. And there's an essential difference, Colson said, between the freedom to order one's public life around deeply held convictions and of merely allowing someone to believe what they want in their own heads, hearts, homes, and houses of worship. Thankfully, in the years since, the American courts have consistently upheld true religious freedom, but not because progressive lawmakers, politicians, and judges didn't try their best. Please pray for Pastor Son, for his wife, for his children. Pray for the leaders and members of Sagara Church, that they would remain faithful and courageous during this time. And please pray for his trial and his sentencing, which is scheduled for the end of this month. And also, please consider signing a petition that was launched by the Christian Broadcasting Network asking our government to speak out on behalf of Pastor Son. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint. And for more resources like this, go to colsoncenter.org/radio.
All right, thank you, John. Let's head outside next. The always reliable meteorologist, Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life forecast for this afternoon. Again, watch for some heavy lake snow east of the Great Lakes, Erie and Ontario. Outside of that, variable cloudiness with some sun, scattered flurries, high temps in the teens, wind chills often sub-0. Tonight, some leftover flurries in the belts, otherwise partly cloudy to clear and bitter, single digits to near 10. Tomorrow, some sun, then clouding up, some afternoon and evening wind and snow, light accumulations, high temps near 30, variable clouds, flurries, a bit of lake snow Thursday, a high in the 20s to low 30s.
Thank you, Kevin. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price. Great to have you with us today. Lot to get to Tuesday, the 20th of January. President Trump renewing his push to acquire Greenland. He's traveling to Davos, Switzerland today, where he'll meet with European leaders about the future of that Danish-owned territory, 3 times the size of Texas.
The president saying he'll tell European leaders America aims to take over the territory, which is currently controlled by Denmark. The president later posting an image of him planting a flag on the Arctic island. But Europe's been pushing back, with more Danish troops arriving in Greenland.
NBC's Gabe Gutierrez says Mr. Trump is threatening new tariffs on European allies that stand in the way of the annexation effort. Winter storm warnings continue through tomorrow afternoon for the lake belts of western and central New York. Those lake flakes are piling high there. Thousands left powerless yesterday in sub-zero wind chills in the south towns of Buffalo. All Buffalo public schools and after-school activities are canceled today due to the dangerous conditions outside, and there are travel advisories in effect as well for ski country. The Trump administration's considering a military response to anti-ICE protests in Minneapolis.
1,500 troops with the 11th Airborne have been given ready-to-deploy orders should President Trump invoke the Insurrection Act and send in the military to restore order.
Jonathan Hunt reporting the Justice Department, meantime, plans to file federal charges against a group of protesters who charged into a church on Sunday in St. Paul, Minnesota. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
What you saw there was anti-Christian, Christian, anti-law enforcement rioters storming a church in this country, and that's a violation of law. You saw the fear in the eyes of the members of that church.
Minnesota's Attorney General Keith Ellison does not believe that the protesters, led by former CNN anchorman Don Lemon, violated the FACE Act. But Tony Perkins with the Family Research Council says, yes, they did.
The hostility toward religion in this country has been latent for some time. Now it has become blatant, this hatred toward God, charging into a church, interrupting a Sunday morning worship service. Protest, yeah, fine, you can go on the street, but when you're breaking into a church service, interrupting a worship service, we've crossed a new red line.
The FACE Act was implemented in the 1990s to protect abortion clinics, but has since been expanded to include houses of worship in this country. Today marks 1 year since President Trump's return to the Oval Office. It was January 20th, 2025, when he took the oath of office for a second time. Mr. Trump was reelected to non-consecutive terms, and only one other president has done that. Grover Cleveland was his name. House Speaker Mike Johnson became the first House Speaker in U.S. history today to address the British Parliament. He was there to help celebrate America's 250th birthday.
America's founders embarked on what was a radical experiment, of course, a government of, by, and for the people. That experiment transformed 13 disparate, distant colonies from the world's largest empire into what became the world's freest and most successful self-government in human history.
Speaker Johnson says the U.S. and Britain have stood together as pillars of peace and security across generations. The Indiana Hoosiers capped off their fairy tale season last night by winning their first ever NCAA Division I college football championship.
He's going to take off and run. Mendoza weaves his way, first and goal, diving toward the end zone. Touchdown! That's where he won the Heisman Trophy.
Quarterback Fernando Mendoza leading the way for the Hoosiers in a gutsy 27-21 victory over the Miami Hurricanes. Indiana becoming the first Division I football team to go 16-0 since Yale did it back in 1894. Next at noon, a conversation with Paul Asay. He's the editor of Plugged In, a Christian entertainment guide that gets more than 1 million hits every month. For advice on movies, music, and TV shows, he's talking to Family Life's Sarah Harnish about a new tech guide that helps moms and dads rein in screens for teens. Here's more of their conversation.
This is sort of a new project for Plugged In. This is the first time that we really dove into the topic as in-depth as we did. We go through a lot of top-line worries, overuse of screen time, social media, internet safety, cyberbullying. We unpack the issues behind it, but then we go on to give parents some really pragmatic, day-to-day advice that they can implement right away. It's 125 pages. You can skip around. You can hit these areas where you think your family is most in need of some help.
I'm excited that you said there's tips, because I feel like as parents we get inundated with the statistics and we see what it's doing to our kids, but we don't know how to put the boundaries and barriers on to protect them. Give me an example of something that's inside. How can parents use this guide practically?
You know, there's a lot of great software that sort of helps you monitor and even lock down certain areas of the internet. We go into some of those services, but a lot of it is where we try to give moms and dads just some really helpful tools. For instance, if you're talking about screen time, is there a huge screen time issue? My kid is just on their phone too much. How can I cut that down? And we talk about, why don't you institute some screen-free areas in your home? No phones in the kitchen, where so many good organic conversations take place. Maybe you'd say no phone use during these specific hours. This is family time. We want to put the phones down. We really suggest, and I know this is a really hard ask in a lot of families, keep those phones out of a kid's bedroom at night, because when it's the first thing that kids reach for in the morning, when it's the last thing they put down in the evening, when they're checking it all throughout the night, that is a recipe for a whole bunch of bad stuff. And so sometimes it's better to have a place where you can put those phones aside for the evening.
Park it in a basket before they go into their bedroom in the evening.
Exactly. And by the way, that's not a bad tip for parents too. One of the things that we stress is that your kids are watching you all the time. Your teens, even if you think they're not listening to you, they are. And they pay attention to how you use technology. And if you're using it a lot, guess what your kids are going to do? They're also going to be leaning into technology a lot.
What are some other tips that you recommend?
Keep good, strong lines of communication open with your children and your teens. That can be hard, but to foster those strong connections, that can help sort of inoculate your kids. Your kids are going to be seeing things online more than likely, no matter what tools you implement, no matter how strict or rigorous you are in monitoring their internet and social media use. They're going to be seeing stuff that you don't want them to see because that's just the world we live in. They need to feel comfortable in approaching you and talking to you about some of the things that they've seen. You need to be able to come and talk with them about why it's an issue and why they need to be aware. Because the thing is, your kids are going to grow up and they're going to be making decisions on their own. So you really need to have that dialogue. It's going to be the strongest tool that you can have to have your kids be raised in a healthy tech environment. When you can, make sure that you have some family activities that you can do together that don't involve screens. A family game night is a great way to go. You can cook together as a family. Things that you can actually spend time together, engaged with, having fun with, that don't necessarily involve screens.
For a second, I thought you were going to say zip lining or whitewater rafting, and I was going to be like,
Which would
Paul,
be great.
I don't know about that one. I don't know. You know, so much of the world makes it into their heads more than Jesus, and it is a war of distraction. It's a war of priorities. What do you do to encourage teenagers to want to shift the balance themselves, that it's not just on the parents?
That's a really great question. Let me just offer a little word of encouragement. Teens are actually seeing this for themselves. We are seeing teens that are saying, you know what, I know what screens do to me, and they are actually cutting back on their use themselves. Some of them are turning to dumb phones that don't have all the technology or pushing away from some of that technology. You see this desire for reality, for a life that goes beyond screens. That's encouraging to me. But as a parent, I think the main thing that we need to do is foster those relationships with your children. Foster them with your teens. Be involved with their lives. And I know that sounds a little bit corny, but I think that that's just so important because when we're pulled away from our screens and when we're able to look at the people who we love face to face, eye to eye, really enjoy time with them, I think that that reminds us that there's so much beyond the next streaming series, so much beyond the next TikTok post. You know, I think that we have this desire for human connection. And one of the problems with screens is that they sort of pretend to give us that human connection, but nothing can replace it other than just that one-on-one ability that we have to communicate with each other. When we lean into those things, I think that that fosters a desire to look to Jesus, to look at the world around us and be grateful for what we've been given.
How do we get the guide?
So the best place to go for the guide, we do have a link to it right on our homepage, which is pluggedin.com. But if you wanted to go directly to sign up for it, it would be pluggedin.com/tech guide. And there's a hyphen in between tech and guide. So pluggedin.com/tech guide. And that'll take you to where you can get this 125-page resource. We're really proud of it. I think our team did a fantastic job with it. And hopefully it is of some help to moms and dads out there.
Why does this matter so much?
You know, because of the era that we live in. It is such a tech-saturated culture. We lean toward technology more and more for our work, for our school, for our social connections, and it can be a huge, helpful tool. We don't want to minimize the good that technology brings into our lives. But as artificial intelligence becomes so much more of our everyday lives, as we lean on these screens ever more, there's such a huge connection that we can lose sight of what God created us to be. The screens, they can be a facsimile of life, but it's not the real life that God intended for us. It's important to keep technology in its proper place. Use it, but use it wisely.
Wise words there from Paul Asay with Plugged In, an online entertainment guide that helps folks make wise choices when it comes to movies, music, TV shows. All our feature reports, including this one, available online anytime. Just go to Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or FamilyLife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Lake effect snows will continue east of the lakes this afternoon. Travelers, be prepared for some rough going, especially south of Buffalo and up in the Tug Hill Plateau. Otherwise, our next weather maker is a little clipper system. It'll bring a bit of snow later tomorrow night. Arctic air follows. Then we'll wait to see how an East Coast storm does or doesn't impact our region for the upcoming weekend. For this afternoon, again, watch for some heavy lake snow east of the Great Lakes, Erie and Ontario. Outside of that, variable cloudiness with some sun, scattered flurries, high temps in the teens, wind chills often sub-zero. Tonight, some leftover flurries in the belts, otherwise partly cloudy to clear and bitter, single digits to near 10. Tomorrow, some sun, then clouding up, some afternoon and evening wind and snow, light accumulations, high temps near 30, variable clouds, flurries, a bit of lake snow Thursday, a high in the 20s and low 30s.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Finally, at noon, a Pennsylvania church provided the perfect setting for perfect strangers to share the gift of life through organ donation. Here's Family Life's Brian Query.
Shelby Barnhart worships at Cornerstone Christian Church in Duncannon. So does Kevin Gray and his family. Gray needed a kidney and was seeking a donor for a transplant. After several individuals stepped up to donate but were found not to be good candidates, he began to give up hope. That was until Barnhart stepped in. Gray's daughter created a Facebook page seeking a kidney for her father. Barnhart saw the page and called the UPMC Harrisburg transplant office, and as it turned out, she was a perfect match. Barnhart told ABC 27,
"Everything just fit perfectly, so, it seems meant to be."
And Gray felt the same way.
I said it was a gift from God.
When asked why she would donate a kidney, her response was simple. Gray summed up her answer.
You know what her response was? God gave me 2 kidneys so that I could share one with somebody else.
Surgery for both of them is today. Brian Query, Family Life News.
What a great story. Thank you, Brian. And that's our world, the world we live in. Tuesday, January 20th. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.